spending hours in front of the page, trying to extract that image that's been tormenting you from that space behind your eyes. The never-ending pull toward the eternal toil. The page can be comforting and all-consuming at the same time. This is the struggle you endure for your craft. For some of us, the ultimate validation lies in being able to create art for a living. This is always, and has always been, an uphill battle. Now with the AI creating the art, some think the hill has gone exponential. I can guarantee that no matter how much you think the odds are stacked up against you, your journey to a successful career will never compare to the struggle of the manga artist Shigeru Mizuki. An artist from a young age, he took inspiration from art magazines and stories about ancient Japanese gods and monsters. Mizuki wasn't too fond of school, a sentiment I'm sure most of us as artists can relate to. In an interview in the Japan Times, he remarked, "I missed the first class every day because I couldn't get up early in the morning, so I scored 0 on math tests. Because math classes were held first thing in the morning, and I skipped virtually all of those classes, so I was called an idiot all the time." He spent his time running the streets and getting into fights. By the time 1943 rolled around, with the war well underway, he was drafted into the Japanese army and assigned to the Bugle Corps. His assignment to the Bugle Corps was likely due to him being artistically inclined. Still, he wasn't much into music or playing the bugle. Conflicts with his commanding officer and maybe his disdain for authority, or maybe it was that he didn't want to submit his musical talents to authority for the military machine, or maybe I'm just projecting here. You get what I'm saying anyway. This eventually led for him to request the transfer into the infantry. He ended up being sent to New Britain Island, in an area we now call Papua New Guinea. The ship he was on got torpedoed and sunk not far offshore from the island, and most of his fellow crew members were killed. He was picked up later on and redeployed. Once on the island, he and his platoon were ambushed by American machine gunners. Mizuki was able to narrowly escape from the grips of death yet again by diving into the ocean. After a grueling swim and trek through the jungle, he finally made it back to his camp, only to be rewarded by his commanding officer telling him he should have died with the rest of his platoon. This would have been, no doubt, his proof of value as a cog. And still, this was not the end of his struggles. He eventually contracted malaria. Then, while he was recovering, an Allied air raid caught him in an explosion and took his left arm. And not just any arm, it was his drawing arm. As a southpaw, it was the hand that he created with. It's interesting to think that if he just played the bugle, his journey would not have led to this pivotal point in his life. You would think his troubles will be over, but even after the war ended, his struggles were just beginning as an artist. Returning home to the war-torn Japan, he found it difficult to find any way to survive. He burned through many different jobs. These include stints as a fishmonger and a bicycle taxi operator. Eventually, with a loan from his parents, he opened a guest house. It was here that an influential character entered, an artist in a genre called kamishibai, a form of street storytelling accompanied by illustrations. Inspired by the genre, he resolved to train his remaining arm to draw and paint, a task that couldn't have been easy, but by 1950, Mizuki was churning out hundreds of drawings. The combination of a favorable new market, coupled with his talents that were tempered and hardened through the immense struggle, led Shigeru Mizuki to take on manga as his primary medium. His early works were inspired by American comics like Superman and Tales from the Crypt. By 1960, he created his own version of Hakaba Kitaro, drawing his own stories and Japanese gods and monsters he loved as a child. From this sprung a whole new genre of yokai-related comics, of which Mizuki can be considered a pioneer. He went on to have a career to be admired by any artist, creating manga on a variety of subjects, including the horrors of war, a subject he was all too familiar with. When you look at what you are facing in opposition to your goals as an artist, reflect on what Shigeru Mizuki had to go through and understand that it is the struggle that created the artist. If he'd stayed a bugle player, he may not have ever been inspired by his work and struggles behind it. It was his opposition to being a cog that differentiated him from the rest of the machinery. And as a personal note, he's my favorite on the artists I've reviewed so far. His story is just much more interesting, and his art too, his subject matter is timeless compared to like Batman or Superman or Mickey Mouse, all these sort of plastic characters. His yokai characters contain a cultural spirit that no stupid superhero could ever have.